What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 81 of the Finale podcast. Today I'm joined by Ife to recap some events in the NBA, among other talking points. So, Ife, how you been?
I've been good. How are you?
I've been good. Appreciate that. So, it's been a few weeks since we've done NBA pod, so want to get back into that. There's been some things that's gone on. Recently the Thunder have been playing well, the Jazz have been playing well. Over in the East, the Celtics, have been playing really well too. So just some different things that have gone on and wanted to touch on a few of those today. First topic up, recent news here. The Pacers are nearing a deal with the Raptors for Pascal Siakam. It's going to include 3 first-round picks and Bruce Brown, reportedly. So among other things as well. But what do you think that move does for the Pacers, first of all?
Um, I feel like the move for the Pacers, I think it makes them better on paper, but overall, I don't really think it makes them a championship contending team with that trade because I don't think Pascal Siakam is really that guy that really moves the needle. So I don't know personally if I would make that trade because you're trading 3 first round picks and you don't really know what those 3 first round picks could potentially be. Plus, they have like a really young core in Halliburton. So me, I would keep those first round picks and just keep building through the draft because you don't know if you can potentially hit on another All Star. Because I feel like Pascal Siakam, he's not really that All Star caliber player no more. So that's how I feel about that trade.
Hmm. Okay. It seems like you're usually like against teams that include multiple first round picks for an all-star level player. Do you just think that risk is not worth it?
I feel like the risk is only worth it if it really makes you a contending team. But I
Yeah.
think in some situations like Minnesota, I think that it worked out because now we're a much better team and potentially a team that can contend in the West. But I
Hmm.
think with the Pacers, like they're still really young. You don't really have to make a move like that. Plus, I think like Rudy Gobert is like in that situation, he's an all defensive player, but Pascal Siakam, he's not really like a guy who can really be that X factor. But yeah.
For sure. Yeah. What I think this does for the Pacers is I just think it gives them another all-star level talent. Uh, they've been missing that for a little bit since they had that Oladipo combination with Sabonis. I feel like since then they really just haven't had that 1-2 combo. Tyrese Halliburton's obviously worked out really well since he's came over there, but I think they just have a bunch of like role players right now that really complement each other, but they're missing a little bit more star power that takes them over the top and, further boosts their chances of competing in the playoffs. The Pacers for years have been a team that's just gone to the playoffs plenty of times, but really haven't been able to advance, barring like 2013 with that Paul George run with that team. But I think this move can really help them. Siakam has proven himself to be a really good scorer, really good playmaker, active player since Kawhi left Toronto. So he's been able to develop his game and been a number one option there for a few years. So I just think he brings that experience, playoff experience. He's an NBA champion, brings that to Indiana, and I like what it does for Tyrese as well. That 1-2 combo, I think it can be pretty lethal. But they're for sure missing a couple other pieces. Um, but I think it's just good to get that playoff experience. It looks like they'll be set to make a appearance this year if they don't, lose out on that 6th seed. But honestly, I think this move could potentially elevate them past the 6th seed and even put them in that top five area because, most of these midseason trades can either, make or break your season. So I think this is the type of move personally that can elevate them and boost them to a higher status for sure. Um, What about for the Raptors? What does it do for the Raptors? Maybe their current talent that gets more opportunities. What do you think it does for them?
Honestly, I really like this trade for the Raptors because I feel like the Raptors they got to really move from that core that they had before with that championship team with Pascal Siakam. I think
Hmm.
they're potentially getting 3 first round picks and they can build through the draft. Plus, they have a lot of the good young guys coming in like Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, and then the development of Scotty Barnes. I think that you can hit on those 1st round picks. I think potentially down the line, it could be a contending team in the East.
For sure. I think for them right now, sitting at the 12 seed, this year is just really about the development of their young talent. And I think it's going to be a quick turnaround for them. I don't think they're going to have too long of a rebuild. Personally, like I said it on the last NBA pod, like I think RJ Barrett's going to step into his own next year when he's given that, off season of training and getting prepared for that, number one or number two role that he's going to have with them. And I think him and Scotty Barnes going to be able to play really well off each other. And the same can be said for Emmanuel quickly, of course. Initially when they made the trade, I didn't think it was going to do all that much for quickly because I just saw him as, more of a scorer, but he's fit in really well there so far with how long he's been able to, mesh with that unit. So I like what, that core three that they have, I like what they can do. But yeah, additionally with, the haul that they're getting with Bruce Brown and the picks, more importantly, like I think it's going to set them up really well for their future, and it won't be too long until they're back into this playoff picture again. So I think it's a W though for both teams for sure. Moving on to the Utah Jazz. So Utah Jazz have been playing, really well recently. Had I'd say underwhelming start to the season, but right now they're at the 9 seed. They've won 9 of their last 10 games. There's been, some talk about the Jazz being sellers at the trade deadline. Larry Markkinen, Jordan Clarkson, guys like that being involved in trade talks. But, right now it just seems like they're playing too well to, the point where you can consider, taking them off the trade block and potentially seeing if they can make a playoff run. Do you think it's in the Utah Jazz's best interest to try to make a playoff run, given, their potential may not be winning a playoff series this year? What do you think they should do at the deadline?
I mean, if I'm the Jazz, I would still potentially look for potential trades regarding Clarkson and Lloyd Markkinen because yeah, if you make the playoffs, what are you really going to do?
Mhm.
And I think long term, like they need to start fresh. So I would look to make moves, but like if there's not really the right move, I wouldn't force a trade, and I would just potentially make that playoff run, like you said.
Yeah. I've been hearing that they're asking for like a massive haul for Larry Markkinen, which I mean makes sense, but it's, keeping teams away from actually making that move. So I think eventually it's going to be tough for them to find a trade, partner for Larry Markkinen unless they decrease that asking price. But if, they can't find a trade partner and they, want to go forward with it, I think definitely go for the playoffs, give this team some experience, and then whoever you want to keep long term is going to get that experience. And then you can even at that point move on from guys like, Colin Sexton, even Larry Markkinen and Jordan Clarkson, and the other guys that have made this playoff run can, take that into next year and potentially move forward with this team. But I think this core right now that they have, I mean, there's a ceiling to it. It's not winning a playoff series in my opinion. So I think eventually down the line they'll make a move, but right now I just don't think they need to force anything like you said. So additionally, what do you think if they were to, make this playoff run, would you agree that they're not able to, win a playoff series?
Yeah, I feel like they don't really have a chance to win this playoff series. Especially, I think that they're going to be in low because right now I don't know if they're in the playoff. I mean,
Yeah,
in the playoff. What seed are they right now?
they're ninth.
Yeah, so like if they do make the playoffs, I think they probably play like the Boston or Philly or the Bucks, and I don't think they can really beat any of those teams in the first round. So they don't have a
Bro,
chance.
they're in the West, bro.
Oh, oh yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. My bad, my bad. Yeah, I mean, same goes. I don't think they can beat
Yeah,
Minnesota, Thunder, or any of those
Denver.
teams. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I would
I don't
agree.
know.
I'd agree. I mean, interesting to see what they'll do. Like, I remember last year, similar sort of thing where they had a good stretch of games and they were sitting really good in the Western Conference playoff standings. I think they were top 10 for sure. Maybe we're even higher, like top five at one point. Mike Conley, Laurie Markkinen, Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, all of them were like going off and they just really fit well together. And then it came to a point where they're just like, all right, it's time to move on from some of these guys. Mike Conley out of there, Malik Beasley. So I was just thinking they're going to do the same thing this year, but I'm just waiting for them to sort of make that move that sets them up for their future because I just don't think that Larry Markkinen is going to be your number one option on a championship level team. I think they're going to find those sort of guys, through the draft with all the picks they accumulated from the Timberwolves trade, and then with their own struggles, setting them up for good draft positioning. So I'm just waiting for them to sort of make that move because we all expected them to be pretty bad after the Rudy Gobert trade, after the Donovan Mitchell trade, but they haven't quite been as bad as like some of these teams near the bottom of the NBA. So they haven't really gotten, really good positions in the draft. Last year, I don't think they had a great position. So I think if they make a move with one of their, better players, that they're going to set themselves up for, a top 10 pick and see what they do from there. But yeah, right now it's a win-win, honestly, though. I feel like they don't need to rush anything. Same thing I said with the earlier segment. Like if they do try to go for the playoffs, get experience, but if they don't, still get experience with some of their guys, near the end of the rotation getting minutes. So we'll see what they do as well. But it's going to be interesting with the deadline approaching here soon. Next topic up, Dejounte Murray. Atlanta Hawks have been struggling this year once again to really put things together. Um, Dejounte Murray's been in the trade talks. There's been a number of teams that have come up in terms of trade partners for the Atlanta Hawks. Not sure what the asking price is for Dejounte Murray, but I'm sure it'd be something similar for what they got from or what the trade was with San Antonio. So he's obviously been playing well, I'd say personally this year or like individually this year. So where do you think DeJounte Murray best fits with, these some of these teams? I'll remind you some of them are like the Lakers, Brooklyn Nets, Miami Heat, Warriors, or just another team potentially. Where do you think DeJounte would best fit?
I mean, I feel like for me personally, I would think the best fit for him would be the Lakers because I feel like the Lakers need another point guard because LeBron James is having to play a lot of point guard, and noticeably his stats have dipped when he plays point guard, and they're not really winning games. So I think that really good fit would be the Lakers, but I don't know the return that the Lakers could potentially get for him for the Hawks that I would take. I think that if I'm the Hawks, any trade for Dejounte Murray would have to include a guy like Austin Reeves because he's
Hmm.
a really good young player. He has a really good future in the league. So I would need someone like Austin Reeves and potentially a D'Lo and a first round pick in that trade.
Are you doing that if you're the Lakers?
If I'm the Lakers, I would do everything in my power to keep Austin Reeves. But
Hmm.
I feel like if worst comes down to it, you might have to because as we see right now, it's not really working. You have Anthony Davis and LeBron James playing at a really high level, and they're still not winning games consistently. Right now, they're out of the playoffs. So I think that I wouldn't want to, but you may have to type thing.
For sure. Yeah, I can see that. Um, yeah. I just think with the Lakers, I mean, I'm curious like how DeJounte would fit next to AD, next to LeBron, because, DeJounte's been at his best when he's been on ball a lot. Uh, Obviously in San Antonio, and then, when he's on ball in Atlanta, like that's where he's really at his best. So, the Lakers have obviously made a trade like for Russell Westbrook in the past for a point guard to play next to LeBron and AD. It didn't really work out. Russell Westbrook, I mean, he's also a ball dominant player, but I think they could do well with a point guard that can, make shots as well and just be a sort of multifaceted offensive player. Like a Trey Young, for example, is somebody who I'd look at. Like if D'Lo was more consistent, I mean, D'Lo would be perfect for them too, just because of how he plays with Anthony Davis and just with others with his playmaking. But his scoring and his like it's just inefficient. Like I think a couple nights ago versus the Jazz, actually, he had like 39 points, but that just comes every now and then. So Dejounte Murray would
I
give them
like
more consistency.
he's been playing really well lately, though. I would say.
He's been playing well recently, but it's just like it's obviously playoffs is something that they got to watch out for. Like, does D'Lo come ready in the playoffs? Recently, he hasn't.
No,
I just
somewhat
don't.
Deontay. He's been playing very well.
Dejounte?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, okay. No, yeah, Dejounte, like, yeah, he's been playing well individually. That's my point. Like, it's not really contributing to Atlanta's team success, and I think that's why they got to make a move. But for the Lakers, I mean, I think they got to find another point guard for sure. But I don't know if Dejounte is the right fit next to these ball dominant or like just guys that need that ball in their hands. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he plays much better when he's got a lot more responsibility. But then again, like he hasn't really been on winning teams in his career. So I don't know if that's a risk that the Lakers would be willing to take. You know, letting go of guys like Austin Reeves. Um, how about some other teams? Like, do you think he'd fit? I mean, do you think he'd fit well with Brooklyn?
Um, I would say no because I really don't feel like Brooklyn is a better situation than he is right now. Me personally, I'd rather be with Atlanta and Trey Young than be with Brooklyn. So I think he would be a decent fit, but I think that Atlanta's still a better fit for him than Brooklyn, especially winning wise.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that. My only thing is like I just feel like he needs to go to a situation where he can really just like blossom, you know? Like going back to D'Lo, like what Brooklyn did for D'Lo, you know, just something like that, change of scenery that can really like make him tap into his potential a little bit more and actually lead to, you know, winning. You know, it's a difference when you're putting up good stats but you're not winning. The Hawks, you know, they're both like Trey Young and Dejounte are putting up good stats, I believe, but they're not winning games, and I think that's why the change of scenery is necessary for at least one of those guys. But with DeJounte being the guy that's really come up in these trade talks, I feel like he needs to go to a situation where he can really blossom on ball and just, you know, be himself like he was in San Antonio. The only problem
But then
with
I feel
that is
like
does go
Brooklyn, they have
ahead.
a lot of guys who are also ball dominant. Like Cam, I mean, I don't know what they would trade for Dejounte
Cam
Murray,
Thomas,
but they have like Cam Thomas, Cameron Johnson, and Bridges as well. So
Bridges, yeah. Well, I feel like those guys don't need to be so on ball besides Cam Thomas. You know what I'm saying? Like Cam Thomas is obviously a guy that puts up shots in bunches, but Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges blossomed in their role in Phoenix, you know, playing off ball, doing what they needed to do. Cam Johnson making shots, Mikal being a two-way player, wasn't having the ball in his hands like that until he got to Brooklyn. But he hasn't been at that same level Mikal has like this year compared to last year. Mikal came in last year, I think his points per game average went from like 17 to 27. This year,
mhm.
he's not really been at that level. So I think he's really at his best when he's able to be, you know, focusing more so on the defensive side and less responsibility on the offensive side. And then Cam Thomas would be that perfect sort of six-man player off the bench where he's, you know, putting up shots and can develop on that side with more responsibility. And that actually brings you more winning because then you have the point guard like Dejounte Murray being able to facilitate and play off guys like Nicholas Claxton. I think that could be a little solid duo right there. But I don't know if he's, you know, I don't want the Lakers to mess up like a big move again. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
We'll see. But yeah, like I kind of hinted on it, but do you think DeJounte is gonna really like elevate a team? Like how much does he move the needle, honestly?
Um, Honestly, I feel like he really does not really move the needle because we haven't really seen him in a winning situation yet. So you don't know this any situation he goes to will result in winning because, like we saw in San Antonio, they weren't really a team that could contend, and then Atlanta, they were much better without him. They made a conference run without him, and when he got to Atlanta, they haven't really done much. So I think if I was a team, I would really think twice about trading for Dejounte Murray because you don't really know if he really contributes to winning like that.
For sure. And I think from like a Minnesota Timberwolves fan perspective, I think that was the reason why they didn't meet the asking price for him when he was on the Spurs. Just multiple first round picks for a guy that hasn't really like contributed to winning. And I think Minnesota were trying to make a move that makes or takes them to the next level, even though there were the question marks surrounding the Rudy Gobert thing. It's paying off now. With DeJounte, I mean, like, there's nothing in the past that can kind of suggest that he's going to contribute to winning. I mean, I know he might have been on those Spurs teams that were really good in the past, but he really didn't tap into his own until he had the opportunities. And when he did have the opportunities, the San Antonio weren't necessarily the best team. I think when DeMar left is when he really like became that sort of guy. So
Yeah.
I just don't know if he's the type of player that is going to go, especially to like a big market and like really blossom like that. I think he's best suited to like take over for like a team that's really trying to figure themselves out a little bit more. But we'll see. I mean, a lot of teams are in for him right now, and he's obviously playing well with the Hawks. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Last topic I had on the agenda for today: Golden State Warriors. Obviously, team that's been underperforming to their standards. They've been struggling. Last night lost to the Memphis Grizzlies without John Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. They've lost three of their last uh they've won three of their last 10 games, lost seven of their last 10 games. So they've been struggling, and this is not just in this stretch, just all season long. They're, sitting at 18 and 22, 12 seed right now. What do you think they should do with the trade deadline approaching?
Honestly, if I'm the Warriors, I don't really know what I would do personally. I don't know if I would really make a big drastic move
Yeah.
at the deadline because I think that their time is just up. It's so like because they've been one of the best teams in the league, and I think that really takes a toll on you when as you become older. As you've seen with Klay Thompson, he's not really playing to the standard that he did before. Draymond Green has taken a step back, and the young talent that they really got, they haven't really been able to develop like Kuminga and Moody.
Oh, you're
So
blocking your speaker.
I am.
Oh, now you're
Oh,
good. Yeah.
okay, yeah. I mean, the young talent that they've got, they haven't really been able to build up. So I'm numb. Honestly, I would keep my roster I have now, and hopefully they can figure it out once after potentially after the All Star break and next year. At the end of the season next year, if they still are not really in the playoff run, I would potentially look to not bring back Klay Thompson and potentially make some moves in the offseason.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm also kind of on that same boat with you. I think this year they're just it's a lot still on Stephen Curry's shoulders, kind of like how it was last year, but it just doesn't seem like they have the backbone to kind of rely on to be able to get themselves out of tricky situations like they did in the past. Uh, I don't think the Chris Paul Jordan Poole trade is quite worked out to what they were expecting. Not that they were, I don't think they were expecting Chris Paul to like be like how he was a few years ago in Phoenix. But I think they were kind of expecting him to really bolster that second unit a little bit more than he is doing. I think Wiggins, averaging career low in points, it's not helping them, and he's been struggling for a while. So they've paid him already. So what are they going to do there? It's not like they can move him at the deadline. There'd be people asking, So Kuminga is a guy that's already came out into well, I don't know if he came out personally, but there's been talks about him being frustrated with his minutes. Um, Draymond Green obviously had his situation, just came back. They've got some young guys like Trace Jackson, Davis, and Podziemski that are rookies, and down the line you could see them having a bigger role, but not a lot of promising players outside of the core that they've had for years now with Draymond, Clay, and Steph. So I'm just curious, like they're not the type of team that really makes moves at the deadline. They're a team that really builds their team out in the offseason and then just goes for it in the season. Whatever happens, happens. But I don't know if they're gonna find a groove and be able to get into the playoffs. I just think um they're just not suited to be able to find a spark this year, just given their current roster. Maybe Draymond Green makes them or gives them that, but it's just been too inconsistent from just this whole team in general that you don't know what to expect. Uh, Something that's also not helping them, of course, is the fact that they're not able to hit on those draft picks too. So even when they've had those down years, they haven't really been able to bolster their team enough to the point where, okay, we're comfortable moving on from a guy like Klay Thompson because we have Kuminga who's ready to break out. They don't know what's going to come out of Kuminga, even though he does give them, good minutes. I just don't think they have hit on any of those young guys for sure. Like Wiseman, Moody, Kuminga just hasn't worked out. And Jordan Poole, we thought it worked out but the season after it really just came to a downhill after that. So I don't know what they're gonna do, but I think it could lead to even like Steve Kerr being gone for sure,
I could see it for sure.
just because like they're not finding it's not the same anymore. It just seems like they're entering a new era, but they haven't really like accepted it yet.
Yeah.
But
We'll
I
see.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, like I said, they've got some promising pieces. It just seems like it doesn't fit with the trajectory of where the organization is heading towards. Last year we saw Curry like save them in that first round series against Sacramento. As much as he's, doing right now, averaging 27, I don't think it's going to be the case this year. A lot of teams are just taking, well, just taking control of like the West, and it's like the same thing I say with the Warrior. I mean, with the Lakers, it's just like the Lakers and the Warriors, they just don't have enough to contend with a lot of these teams in the West anymore. And they're gonna have to like figure this out over off season. Like the Lakers last year, remember they made the trade deadline moves and then just fixed it for them.
Yes.
I don't think it's gonna be the case this year, just given how these other teams are a little bit more like further along in their process. I don't know how these two teams are just gonna be able to figure out their thing, their problems, and going into the playoffs, being able to contend with either of them, with any of them rather. So I don't know. Like you said, we'll see, but I think soon there's going to be a lot of changes for the Warriors coming up in the offseason, I'd say. But yeah, anything else we wanted to touch on today with this pod?
Um,
Anything else we're missing?
now I feel like we covered uh, a good percentage of the relevant topics so far right now.
Did we miss anything? I mean, I'm trying to see the anything like any teams underperforming, any team. Oh, let's talk about the Grizzlies a little bit. Um, what do you think of how GG Jackson's been playing?
Yeah, he's been playing really good. I'm very surprised. Isn't he like the youngest player in the league? Or
Youngest player in the league, yeah.
yeah, I feel like they potentially hit on another draft pick. It's really good for them, and I think they really have a really good future down the road. I think they could
Hmm.
really be one of the best teams in the West, especially when John Morant comes back healthy. You have Marcus Smart training for Marcus Smart, and then also, I mean, Desmond Bain, he got hurt, but he's been playing at a really high level this year. So I think that when they're all fully healthy, especially having a guy like GG Jackson who can potentially be like a six man for you, and you can get Steven Adams next year back fully healthy. I think next year they can be a really dangerous team. That
For sure. I think, yeah, they're just going to gain a lot of development this year with all their struggles. They're going to get opportunities for some of these guys to see who can make it onto their roster when they're actually, suited to compete again. But right now, yeah, it's just all about the development. Not really much you can control. Um, when Ja came back, obviously they had a little promising run, but I don't think that's gonna. Well, now with the injury, I don't think that's anything that they can, expect with Desmond Bain only being one of the guys there and Jaren Jackson. Even if Brandon Clark comes back soon, I just don't think it's enough to, get themselves into position to, be in that play-in tournament. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so we'll see what happens with them. Um, anything else? Let me just cover here. Okay, how about this? Obviously Pacers, like you mentioned, made that move or are going to make that move for Pascal Siakam. What's another team that's kind of in that fringe playoff sort of area where where they could potentially make a move for an all-star? What's a team that you think could, be that next team to do that?
Um, and that's just tough. You just put me on the spot.
Hey, take a look at the standings. I mean, if I find one first, I might go ahead of you, but I mean, I think you can say the Kings.
Yeah, Sacramento for sure.
Kings for sure. I mean, they've been trying to go after Siakam, but the asking price was a little bit too much, and you know they've been willing to get rid of Harrison Barnes. They've been willing to get rid of Kevin Herter, but they just weren't getting too advanced in the talks with Toronto. I think they're a team that should make a move because it seems like they've kind of they might run into the same problems in the playoffs again if they don't find a like different sort of energy to their team. It just seems like, I mean, a lot of people probably expected them to drop off a little bit this year. They're still fifth seed, but I think they're missing like a little bit more, perhaps in the starting lineup to help them out and give them a little bit more punch. Um, I don't know if they should get a front court player, maybe find a backcourt partner for De'Aaron Fox besides Malik Monk. Maybe it's just someone like that. I'd say Sacramento though they could do for a move if they want to get out of the first round this year.
Yeah, I mean, the only team I can really think of is potentially Miami, but like they've been in a lot of trade talks with a lot of the superstars over the past couple of years. They haven't really made a move like that, but I
Yeah,
think that they potentially might have to make a move to be able to contend for a championship. But we never know with Miami because they always get super hot during the playoffs. So
that's true. And like Jimmy Butler's not really playing too many minutes right now, so he's gonna be prepared for the playoff runs. Um, And yeah, that's why I think Miami, like you don't really know what to take out of their regular season performances because they've always got something coming in the playoffs that you didn't see in the regular season. And right now they're in the fifth seed, so they're doing better in the regular season than they did last year. So, but yeah, another team that, is always in the talks, like you say, but we never know with them. But yeah, some of these other teams, I don't think they're in position to make a move. Like the Magic had a nice start to the season. Right now, they're kind of like came back down to earth. I think they're a little bit too early before making a move like that. Maybe get some playoff experience this year and then make a move. But I think just let those young guys, get the experience, see what they're made of. But they already got like, they're already going to build around, Franz and Paulo. So I don't know like what exactly they would go for. Probably a point guard, but I think wait on it for sure. Um, hmm. But yeah, as far as that, I mean, there's a number of teams, and then there's going to be some of these teams near the bottom that have good players that are going to start selling at the trade deadline for sure, like the Trailblazers or Malcolm Brogdon, Wizards or Tyus Jones. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Trade deadline's coming up. Um, Lastly, if I missed anything, just want to take a look. Anything, Ife, that I'm missing?
no, I feel like we really talked about um most of the teams. The only team that we really didn't speak on was Dallas. I think that they've been having a
True.
solid season. Um,
Kyrie,
yeah, Kyrie been playing really good with Luka out like at an elite level, which is kind of scary.
yeah,
But
for
and
sure.
that he dropped.
What's that? You're muted. You're muted.
Hello.
Yeah, I hear you now.
That's the only team was we didn't really speak on much was Dallas with
Dallas.
Kyrie. He's been playing at a really high level with Luka being out, and Tim Hardaway had a 40 piece yesterday. So yeah,
What do you think about the Pistons? How they've been playing? They're on a little 7 game winning streak right now.
I think I think they're playing at a really high
No,
level.
I'm
They're
playing. I'm
potentially
playing.
one of
No, they're not.
no, I was kidding. Yeah,
uh
they're on a 1 game streak though.
no, yeah, they got the win. Timberwolves face them tomorrow. They made a trade, I think, a couple days ago with Marvin Bagley. So
Oh yeah,
that's not
that's
gonna
kind
do
of
anything
weird
for
trade.
them. Yeah, yeah. It's just like I don't know. Like two of the worst teams in the East making a trade. It doesn't really make
Yeah,
any sense. But um all right. Yeah, let's not stall anymore. I think we covered most of the topics that were on the agenda. Anything like current events wise that's relevant in NBA, I feel like we covered it. Uh, but yeah, so that's everything. Episode 81, short one, but quality over quantity, like I told Ife.
for
Uh,
sure.
Episode 81's in the books. Ife, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for
Hopefully we
having me.
get yeah, hopefully we get Ashford or Yosef on for next time. But yeah, good talk, and we'll see everyone next time. Peace.
For sure. Peace.